Welcome. I'm Dr. Liz, an entrepreneur, speaker, podcaster, mom, and wife. This podcast is about hypnosis, but also about all kinds of ways to help you live your fullest life, to heal, transform, to play the long game and go after the joy. You can see more about me at drlizhypnosis.com. Hop over there to get a free hypnosis file to decrease fear and anxiety or one to increase emotional stability. They're there just for you. I hope you enjoy the podcast as much as I do. Peace. Hey everyone, Dr. Liz here. I hope that you're having a wonderful new year. This is airing at the beginning of 2024, so we're well into the 8th season of the podcast. I'm somewhat at a loss about how to introduce this interview. I wish I could tell you what we talked about, but I really am not clear to tell you the truth. Jonathan likes to monologue, and he makes that very apparent pretty near the beginning of the interview. So I mostly stay quiet and let him talk. Jonathan and I met at a training that we were both doing with Dr. Andy Hahn about how to do like spiritual past life type of work. And I just found him interesting, and he seemed to be a really good person. And he really does want to help people, which he talks about the various ways that he does that in this interview, as well as all the different things that he's studied. So I hope you find it of value. So let's jump in. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the Hypnotizing Podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Liz.
Yes. So I know that you have done quite a few things since we last spoke.
Oh, yeah.
So why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience, like who you are, what you do, what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I'll give them a little bit of a background. Yeah. So I would just want to contextualize. I'm obsessed with like learning cool things that help the humans flourish. That's my highest passion, I guess. It's my passion is to see humans flourish. So I've been studying different things related to that. And it's a really exciting time. It's a great, perfect introduction because I want to talk about a little bit about my history. I'm going to go into a little bit of depth because I want people to know me. It'll make my ideas make more sense as we're talking. Yes. I have a feeling we're going to talk about a lot of big ideas because that's the kind of chemistry that you and I have. Is we see complex systems. So, anyways,
Absolutely.
let me start off. My professional background is in organizational psychology or organizational development, change management. And it's really about understanding how people work well together, but of course also includes individuals because groups are just individuals together.
Yeah.
So we got to understand their mind. And then later in life, I studied Tibetan Buddhism. And I went even deeper in the mind because I realized every moment like cycles through our psychology. And, obviously you do this similar kind of work. You realize it's just a high leverage point. And once I did this Tibetan Buddhism stuff, it introduced me that and studying Ken Wilber's integral theory about this idea of intuition. I've been such an analytical guy trying to figure everything out with my mind, and it was working with me maybe 75%, but part of me was still I was having a good time in life, but I was like, I'm not having my entrepreneurial life. I'm not having the deep love that I always sought. And so that's what also drove me to the Tibetan Buddhism. It's like I got to understand my mind deeper.
Okay.
And once I understood that I could use intuition, because I realized as the meditation makes you more concentrated and you can see subtle thoughts. And when you see subtle thoughts, I realized, oh man, I got a lot of ideas going on. I got to sort my mind out in a more organized way in order to.
Was that a change process for you?
Yeah, it was a process.
Really not see the subtle thoughts before studying the really
I didn't know. I don't know. I actually think, look, I've gone really, really deep into my mind. I'm all my friends and family are probably sick of me talking about all my past life traumas and deep childhood traumas. I'm sure it annoys them. But it's like been my obsession to, once I learned the Tibetan Buddhist stuff, is that there's an end to their path. And they're like, whoa, there's like, it takes a little while. It's a practice. I mean, you got to do the work.
It is.
But what they claimed, and they doing scientific research. My primary meditation teacher was Daniel P. Brown, and he studied with the Dalai Lama's meditation teacher.
Wow.
So this has had a lot of credibility. And I took his class, and I don't know, I had a moment of like creative genius blast, or an insight that I knew, oh my God, if people actually understood what the Tibetans know. Did you know that they're most people don't know Tibet's like way up in the mountains?
Yes.
It's really cold there, but nobody wants to go up there and conquer them. So people just left them alone, and they're like kind of stuck there. And apparently they, to entertain themselves, they're like, oh, what is this thing called consciousness or mind? And it turns out that's a really important question to ask, because it's like our platform of like what life is. And they ended up having all these like weird superpowers, like people living for thousands of years, like, I mean, like eternal life, people flying. And I was a very much materialist when I took that class. And then I kind of saw what they're seeing, and I was like, oh, actually, if I see idealist, what they mean by idealism, which is to see the mind is also both physical. We're not denying it's not physical, it is, but it's also, what if you are able to shift back and forth and go, oh, it's also a bit of a dreamy physical thing. And what if we can influence it in a way that actually makes people happy? Because at the end of the day, that's what makes me happy. I feel at peace when everyone else is at peace. I love to be in a world where we're just, even the adults get to be like more mature kids. And it's like, I was just at Burning Man, you were asking me. And that's kind of like a celebration of like what life could be. So I've been studying with this guy, Donnie Epstein, and he has a very clever way of mixing psychology with energy. Because it turns out our energy determines like our thought. Like, just think about, you went and ate like a lot of junk food for like an entire week, and how you'd feel versus if you were exercising, yoga, meditation, have a job you like, all the things that give you positive energy.
Coffee is like just a very basic example of that.
Coffee.
And you drink some coffee and you're like, oh my God, I could do like 20 tasks now. Like it's your energy. And so then you're like motivated. Like that's a common experience. Actually, I'm not drinking much coffee these days, but it's a common experience.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone can relate to the fact that if you have more energy. So Donnie said, like, great, what if we go more energy and we add the word coherent? Okay, great. What does coherent mean? That can mean a lot of things. But coherent to me means, and I'm pretty sure Donnie would agree, is a coherent to like you in life. What is the
like
part of life that like brings people together, called the weaver, which a name for it, just a web, kind of like a spider that's connected everyone, and our souls know how to guide us. I kind of see us all as these multi-layered beings. I mean, there's a lot of trifectas in all the religions. So there's like, the ultimate reality, the weaver that's coordinating us, and there's like a soul that's guiding us, because it can really see what's going on with us, and it could talk to the weaver. And then there's us, and we're complicated. We have different parts. We've got like an upper mind that's creative, and we love that guy, and he helps us integrate things and process different perspectives. And then there's like a lower mind that seems to like not like us, like ourselves or other people, and project out weird stuff. Turns out we need that guy, because we got to make choices.
True.
Otherwise, you have observer, right? This is like one, is everything's at one, and then it decides it wants to observe itself. Imagine this like as the origins of existence. This to me is the real Big Bang. It's like everything's one, and some part of it knows, I want to watch myself. Oh my God, I did it! Like it's a magic trick. Holy shit, I can watch myself. And then it's like that scares the shit out of me. I am the ultimate reality, and then it has to separate into like a million pieces, because at some level it knows it's all about separation. Creativity, ingenuity is about subtle parts coming together in new and new formula ways. And there's probably mathematical formulas, I think, that underpin it, that we're going to make life beautiful for this observer. So to me, that's like how life really forms. Once I understood the Tibetan perspective, as consciousness is the ultimate platform for existence itself. And so that to me is the tool we would want to master as a human species, if we want to have like infinite light, infinite beauty. I actually believe a lot of people think, oh, it's going to take, hundreds of years or thousands of years before we're going to have peace on Earth. I'm way more optimistic, like way, like I think
Nice.
easily in 3 years if we focus on the
Really?
right things. I think what if all right, I'm also known amongst my friends as a rational conspiracy person. By that, I mean there's a lot of weird stuff on the internet. Everyone
Uh-huh.
knows that. And some people have terrible discernment, and some people do. There's a few of those conspiracy stuff that I can say with 100% confidence, I'm with the conspiracy people. And then there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of stuff I'm like, that's bonkers. I think you got some
Okay.
stuff going on. You need a therapist. And
Uh-huh.
then there's like a bunch of stuff I'm not really sure, honestly. Like
Uh-huh.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's confusing. It's not life's not always that straightforward.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm an open conspiracy person. So I have this fantasy
Mhm.
that like the like CIA, all the governments in the UN, at some level, we're all seeking this unity and peace, and we just have different ideas. And what if at the most intelligences, what if there's a part of like the CIA and the MI6 and Mossad and whatever that is, and the KGB, obviously, and the China's got one. Every big country's got them. What
Yeah.
if they maybe they have some dark parts, but what if they have some light parts, like we're the smartest, most angelic people, like white hats,
Mhm.
white sorcerers, but just people who have a good heart are actually working together towards a healthy world peace that's more rational and deals with the mind and the energy.
At the ultimate level, they are seeking peace and protection, right? Like every country
Yeah.
is trying to protect
Yes.
itself from
And have
essentially
flourishing for themselves and their
war, or
people.
what they consider, in their mind, someone who's going to disrupt their country in some major way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are seeking peace at the
So
base
yeah,
level.
well, I mean, so I don't know. I'm my greatest wish for humanity is that we first stop like being violent towards each other. And to me,
Mhm.
that's like about um first off, we got to learn to talk our problems out as a cultural norm. Like, what
Mhm.
if we had like professional, open-minded facilitators who were just kind of good people? Maybe they had a good sense of humor and they could
Mhm.
see a lot of perspectives. And they'd be like shamanic and shamans because they're gonna have a lot of power. Their job isn't to make decisions, but to like hold space and ask good
Mm.
questions and make sure
Mhm.
everybody's heard in a way that's efficient and effective.
Jimmy
It was
Carter,
he
like
he was
mediators.
yeah, mediators, good. Jimmy
Mhm.
Carter, dude. Mediation is
Yeah.
definitely it. We need mediators and facilitators. Like,
Yes.
what if the mediators they can double as both, but I think there's a difference because facilitation is more about making sure everyone is involved, and
Mhm.
mediation sometimes has like there's a third party kind of saying this is it. We probably need both for different situations.
Mm.
But anyways, I wanted to get back to this point
Yeah, I
is
see them as very similar. I mean, you can make some fine distinctions,
yeah,
but ultimately they're both wanting two parties or three parties or however many parties are involved to come to some kind of agreement of what, is best for everyone, let's
do
say,
you
best
ever
for the
work with like
collective.
couples? Do you do couples work
I
at
was
all?
a couple specialist for like 20 years.
Okay, so I
And then
mean that's like the same thing. You're
I
like
stopped
you because you're
working
doing
with
it.
couples.
Were you doing facilitation or mediation or
I was
both?
doing therapy.
Therapy. Well,
So
but therapy is a form of that too.
it is, it absolutely is. Yeah.
You're facilitating
Yes.
conversations between two people. What did you
Absolutely.
think about that? That kind of stuff. I do couples work.
I see it more as facilitation. You're right.
You can't dictate to them. They have to choose at the end of the day. You could be like, okay, based on the evidence, you want my opinion, these are the variables you might want to think about really strongly because
Yeah. Well, my
like that kind of thing.
training,
So you really are guiding the conversation away, but you're doing it from a very centered, like this is not about me and I understand. You even explain like, hey, I'm suggesting
for
this and
sure.
this is why. And that is very sensitive.
My therapy was focused more on process. So let's
Yes.
improve the process of how
Yes.
you work things out, how you resolve conflict,
Oh.
how you relate to each other. So the content is actually far less important, even when they study couples
Yes.
long term that are happy, than the process. And
Oh
to
my
give
God.
the audience an example of process versus content, let's see. Hey, honey, you really forgot to do the dishes last night. And the partner says, "Oh my God, you're always on me for that. Like,
Mm.
can't you just give me a break for a day?"
Mhm.
So that's a hostile process,
Yeah, absolutely.
process, versus the partner says, "Oh, you're totally right. I've been distracted, and thanks for the reminder. I'll get on it tonight." Okay, so that's a process of like improving the
Absolutely.
process to where the conflict is reduced, and that's just a very relatable example. But when you take it into like larger problems, if you have a better process to work things out, then generally you have a better relationship ongoing. So same with what you're talking about, when people are in process, in a healthy process and one that feels good, it's very different than people in a conflictual process that feels hostile and awful.
Yeah, I process is an as a organizational development consultant. I also called myself a process consultant.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'm a big student of Edgar Schein. He invented that thing, and process involves all those processes, like setting ground rules, learning how to
Yes.
talk non-violently,
Yes.
to make agreements, like
Yeah.
starting with basic agreements, like how are we going to actually decide between the two of us? Like that's like when I'm a facilitator, it's like,
Yes.
okay, leadership team, how are we deciding? Is it all on some CEO? Is everybody involved? To what weight?
Yes.
Like, what if we tell the truth about that instead of like, and then being behind each other's backs? We need a
Yes.
process that honors that sometimes certain individuals or small groups of people might be have more weight in an answer, like
Mm-hmm.
there's
What
some
do
people who
you?
are really, can I just finish the sentence?
Yeah, yeah.
Really have studied a lot of complexity,
Mm-hmm.
and some people have had a different kind of life. They got to raise kids, they got to make a living, and they don't may have not had a lot of opportunity to have as much study as someone as I have, and we're gonna need a period of time to digest all of this stuff as a species before everyone can feel the kind of inner peace that I think that we all crave. Because I think peace and good process equals ingenuity, creativity, and the thing I'd love to do after, I know you want to say something, but I'd love to talk about purification. I want to talk about purification, because I really think the deep kinds of psychology that you and I do uh, have to be maybe at the forefront of the solution, because traumas that we are living in.
What
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you mean by purification?
This is what I mean by purification. There's two parts to people's minds. There's this part that's the defense mechanism. The defense mechanism is hiding the fact that each person has a story that they can't feel some intensity level. Like I can't feel I hate myself at 10 out of 10. Because that's like I want to die, right? So there's a defense mechanism that stops it.
Okay.
There has to be ways, because it's such a powerful story. It's about death, and we value life so much because it's so precious. Nobody even knows how it's possible. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
miracle. This is a magical miracle that we're living, and so this, um, basically, um, when people learn to slowly feel some of this intensity by feeling
Mm-hmm.
it as an expression of their first, usually some childhood wounds or even some adult wounds, because people can get traumatized during
Yes.
adulthood too, of course.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
divorces are
Yes.
traumatizing, deaths, losing jobs, money dropping. There's going to be all kinds of super traumas or even minor traumas. So it's not just a childhood thing, but the childhood ones are important because it actually shows us how we're going to deal with it. Once that's the thing that does stick at childhood, is the pattern of which we handle stress is pretty much solid by 6. I
Mm-hmm.
think psychologists have figured that out. When people start to master their mind and their consciousness, and they do this purification, once you stop getting mad at like yourself, and then because really every time we hate someone else is because they're doing something that reminds us, not every time, but a lot of the time, a lot of that thing is called triggers. There's something about them. Certainly if anyone like saw somebody beating up on someone weaker them for no just cause reason, that's natural anger. Everyone would be furious, and we'd want to jump on top
Yeah.
of that. So
Yeah.
if we can help us get more process. We talked about process
Mm-hmm.
earlier. When we get our process better, where we can start communicating better, I want to go back to the 3 marriages. Marriage with God. What my marriage to God? I have a marriage to God. It is to have a world. I'm an advocate of world peace and multidimensional abundance through good process, with an emphasis on energy and consciousness and facilitative dialogue as like three mediation, that right there, if we focus on like those three things and have faith that there's a higher power, that the white hats have taken over, and there's enough, the black hats are either, and the white hats have got some sort of an agreement that, we're going to be one now. I think once that happens at the highest level, it starts to spread outward, and then people got to figure out, well, how do we explain what actually happened? It's really complicated, because life is never as it seems. Like I know I am super humble that I don't know that much, and I also trust my intuition, because that's what happened in when I worked with Dan Brown. Is they were like, hey, sometimes you can know to say things beyond what the information you have. And it can sound outrageous until you actually go through this process where it shows you like, okay, in certain situations, you're going to have thoughts that are original. And because and they show you in this Tibetan thing how to connect to everything and still be present. And it sounds impossible until you understand how they see the world. And I can't wait to promote that in a way, break it down slowly so people can really rock it. Because I think the future of humanity is like super rainbows and everybody's happy. Like gay just means happy. Everyone, as long as you're not doing anything violent to someone else, that basically, you're good, and that we can use like even people who did crazy shit in the past, that we have a new way of healing people, and we recognize everyone's also God, just like us, and they deserve to have a pure mind. So to me, that gets into the second marriage. Remember I talked about three marriages?
Okay.
Second marriage is this marriage of our parts work, right? You've done parts work in your therapy life. Yeah. How important, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Talk about like how important you've noticed parts work is in, hypnotism or
Oh, it's
therapy. Yeah.
it's seminal. I don't think I've worked without parts work
Yes.
ever, really. Even if you're not aware of it as a therapist, I
Yes.
mean, I would say some therapists are not aware they're doing parts work when they're doing parts work. Anytime you're
Yes.
thinking about that part of you,
Yep.
let's say that is generating the depressive thoughts or the anxious thoughts, and let's talk to that part of you, or let's talk to the depression. That's parts work.
Yes.
With hypnosis, when someone's looking to heal trauma or go back or heal that part of themselves that developed the belief that then is, let's say, sabotaging their life, right? That's parts work, really. You're looking at the
Yes.
part of yourself, or we're going back to inner child, which is a part of yourself that still exists, that was developed very young, that does need care and tending. So yeah, it's a constant. Even like I say, I stopped doing couples work. I did it for a long time with two couples in the office, and now I say I do couples work with one partner, because if you are able to change some of your own interactions, it can affect the relationship very positively. But it's all about personal responsibility, and sometimes that was, I don't know, lacking when you have two people both focusing on the other person and what they're doing wrong versus like personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all got our energy more coherent and kind of connected to like the super geniuses. It's like everyone both becomes a teacher and a student. Like everyone realizes each person's going to get natural kind of abilities because of how they were their trauma, and once they dealt with the traumatized and the defense mechanism, they get even better at that, and then they can teach it because they realize they have a unique perspective on life, and they can affect a certain audience, and everyone has that ability. I think when people understand their gene keys, they're going to realize that the ultimate reality is super intelligent, and is everything is so perfect, it's almost bonkers crazy. It's like, yeah, it takes some study to get there. Thank you, Ken Wilber, for helping me learn about metaphysics, to just see patterns beyond patterns beyond patterns. And I don't know. That's probably one of my superpowers, is to get so lost in my mind because I didn't want to deal with some pain that was in my body. It turned out I was in a past life. I was one of those dudes who was like a rebel, like those like witches in Salem. Maybe I had some special gift of seeing like the future or something. I think I did. And I was telling people, I think this is like this, I don't know. These are the plans I'm getting from wherever. I don't know where they're coming from, but every time I listen to these super powerful thoughts, like something epic happens. Like I went to Burning Man. I'll just give you 2 examples of recently. And my spirit was like, all right, I gotta get to Burning Man. I gotta get like a bus ticket or whatever. And my spirit's like, no, I already set it up. Someone's gonna get you there. And it's important that you just trust. And then I was like, oh, I need to get a ticket to Colorado where I'm at now. I don't want to talk about the project why I'm here too, because you had mentioned that. But before I do that, so some part of me was like, oh, I better just get a ticket for the last day of Burning. I was like, you don't actually know what date you're going to leave yet. Don't get the ticket yet, Jonathan. I was like, okay. And then it turned out what happened was I was flying and my flight got delayed at in Rochester, where I was at my parents' place. And when I got to Chicago, I was supposed to connect to a flight to Reno. And my flight was so late from Rochester, I was like running to get to the gate, and boom, they smack daggle the door like a couple minutes early, and a whole bunch of people going to Burning Man, and other people just kind of like popped up, and we were all kind of pissed together. And they're like, all right, here's your free tickets for your next flight, and here's your, so all us Burning Man people went and had dinner and started to get to know each other. And then they drove me to Burning Man, and it just turned out they were like really, really epic people. I really like felt like a soul bond with them.
Fantastic.
And it was cool. And then I got to give back. It was really fun because they gave me a lift, but then I gave them like personal healing sessions, and they were excited about that because we discovered we talked about process to being at their highest greatness, and I helped them identify what step they needed to do next. That's the thing is different people need different kinds of therapists sometimes, but then some people can be like a person that they could go to and help like lead to other people. I think that would be an important skill. Someone who can just like assess and be like, yeah, connector. I love to do that. I can do a lot of things. Okay. So I'm a little bit more, can handle a lot of variety, but my core passion is really to work with leaders who aspire to have this is what I call the new abundance industry, an industry where that's focused on this wellness, this comedy, this higher energy, so we can work on what's going on in our mind, identify our defense mechanisms, identify our superpowers. How do we turn our superpowers into better efficiency and effectiveness? And we're going to make more money. I think I have a friend, Kristen Raguson, who's got a super book out about how to have like connect human efficiency and productivity with just humans being epic humans. And when we connect that in our money and in our mind and bodies, I think we're going to go from a debt-based currency to one that's just keeps going up. And literally at some point, I actually see a point in history where everyone sort of realized, oh, we're kind of God talking to each other, and we all have like unlimited money, and we can kind of play in an adult kind of super play that's going to be like new, exciting, and visionary. And I'm excited that these are the kind of visions I get because I spent so much time spacing out as a kid. I was just like one of those daydreamer kids. Snoopy's my favorite cartoon character, and he's like this kind of daydreamer dude. And so I have daydreams a lot about what it would take to do world peace. That's kind of a hidden, I don't know, obsession maybe. I don't know, but I like doing that because it's fun. And right now that came up to my project now, because now I like to hang out with people who have that same agenda. And it turns out there's a lot of them, and we're all kind of coming together on every level of the private sector, government sector, regular people. Just like, what is it going to take to have like a decentralized, peaceful world, where we start to forgive, like a lot of forgiveness, atonement everywhere, and set up systems of infinite growth and creativity in a safe way. So this project I have now in Colorado is called Cosmos.
Okay.
And Cosmos is right now it's a publishing house. Marco Morelli is the founder, and he's got a community and a reputation of being really peaceful, integral guy. Guys really connects with a lot of smart people with with a lot of integrity, and he's always stood for peace and abundance, but doing it in a smart way. And he's bringing me in as an organizational development person to structure it, because Ken Wilber's metaphysics talks a lot about development. So multidimensional development on all four quadrants of life, all zones, etc. And basically, uh, we want to use his model and really energize it up with, like, I've studied with like a chi master named Sifu Jones, and we use like Western esoteric techniques. Studied with Neil Kramer, who's a Hermetic master, and like conscious language, where you really help people use the right decrees to help them like code.
Yes.
What if we could code our own mind? But
We
you
can
gotta
code
know
our
what
own
you're
minds.
doing. Was that?
We can code our own
I know
mind.
you're a hypnotist. That's what you
Yeah.
do. That
Yeah.
people pay you to do it.
Right.
It's an art form, though. It's an art form. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit,
It
about
is.
how important it is. And you really got to know what you're doing. We don't want anyone just saying like, I'm an NLP expert or whatever. I'm talking about really understanding, like, how do you unlock people's super cities? And we want to have as many epic people in doing it, but we need to undergo. I think if I had to pick a fifth most important thing we need for world peace, is where is that line between, like, hey, I'm ready to like not supervise you anymore because you just are so locked into like what it means to be a human who is going to be peaceful. All we want is to know that you're not going to be run up and punch someone or do something violent intentionally, or go into like a movie house and fire when there's no fire, like senseless shit like that. It's just like, there's probably
Well,
not that many. We need
those
some
people.
universal moral code, basically, and it includes, how do we know for sure like this person is so psychologically sound that they're just going to be a positive contributor, and how do we do that while also honoring weird predilections and things that to some people seem crazy, and to somebody who's like a psychologist or just open-minded can see, okay, we should allow that. We got to have a discussion about how do we do that. And I think it's about letting people a period of time where people move around, and let people who like each other aggregate more together. Tribalism's not a bad thing, as long as it's a peaceful tribalism where the tribes aren't trying to smash each other and try and take over. What if the tribes just like, okay, everyone's a little bit different. The centralized authority has almost no tasks, but a couple ones, like maintaining some sort of probably a currency that makes transactions easier, but like a very transparent ledger, like the blockchain, or multiple blockchains that are with really ethical. We need checks and balances. That's why the United States got us so tweaked out, and weirdness is the checks and balances like got off. So
Yeah, our original system was really dependent on that, and they are.
yeah, I mean, it seems like the big banks and the corporations just gobbled up the defense industry, and then they gobbled up everything. If that's true, and I think it's true, you would hope that eventually that the brightest and best of those people are gonna be very light, and they're gonna deal with the darkness in their own families, and just hoping that's happening behind the scenes. I don't have any direct
Yeah, I
evidence of
mean,
that. I just
there's.
think that's inevitable. The good outweighs the dark. That's just what's in my heart. That's what I seen within me. The more light I shined into my own mind, I realized that my soul is nice, kind, and wants to goodness for me and everyone else. And
Yes.
so I actually, it was weird. My biggest fear, I talked about like this past life trauma. Like at some point, I apparently was like a rebel, like one of these witch people, because I could see the future, and I kind of made some out there statements about what a very optimistic future, not like unlike I'm doing now, and ruffled up the feathers because some people actually believe me, and powers to be is like, you can't do that. The world's not ready for that. There's such a contrast between what you're saying and what's actually happening in life. It's upsetting the power structure, And apparently I didn't have a good ending to my life. I just died unhappy. And spirit is like saying that's happened throughout all of history. A lot of people think about Jesus, but really that's an archetype. Jesus is an archetype. I know there's people who say like, oh, this happened in this part in history, somebody just made it up. No, I think what's really happens is that this is an archetype. This is a kind of person who, for whatever reason, my theory would be they were had a super trauma early on, and then they got really detached, and they got more altitude, more growth, and then they could teach. And sometimes the teaching was so much higher than where the mainstream is. It just was like this kind of pattern disruption, and this part just blip, kind of knocks off that guy. With and I think we're at a point in history where that doesn't have to be true anymore. I think we really are enlightening as a species.
Yes,
And I do think this integral perspective where we can look at altitude, look at things from a higher, like more heaven-like thing with compassion. I think compassion at the end of the day is going to solve it. And by compassion, I mean not just empathy, like, oh, I really get it. I feel for you, but also I can construct what happened to you because I understand that everything's thing. And sometimes people don't need to, some people just feel it really deeply. Some people feel and think it. Some people intuit it. But if you actually get your coherent energy, everybody goes up in every dimension, even if historically it wasn't their strength. For example, I'm notorious for being like very intellectual, but I found that I didn't become a better version of myself until I learned to go the opposite direction, which is to feel deeply. And that unlocked my intuition, which I would say is way stronger than my intelligence.
Well, and it is a personal path for everyone to get there. So could we have systems set in place to aid people in doing that?
Yeah.
Yes. And
That's what
there's
Cosmos
also a
is all
risk
about.
of that system.
What's the risk?
Right.
I mean, just finish. As the Cosmos, I'm being brought in to make Cosmos or help co-create, not make an alchemy center where like it attracts other people who understand what I'm saying. Probably a lot of people in the integral theory group, but also people are just seeing more complexity. People in the conspiracies thing for sure, because you got to take all in order to really, if you have a healthy conspiracy mind, you see systems as systems. And also, a lot of people maybe into like new age stuff or healing or yoga or wellness. It's kind of like catching on. I think eventually it's going to be everyone. I think even like some of the Trump supporters have a certain like a right wing take on it, and then you got these people on the left who are more about the compassion side. So one side's holding compassion, one side's holding freedom. Let's merge. Let's go compassion, freedom, merge under multidimensional abundance and peace. Boom. That's the umbrella. I think
Sounds
that
so easy, Jonathan.
it's a marriage. Well, it's a marriage. It's the third marriage. So once you clear up your inner parts work, you have more peace inside of you. Then the third marriage is just marriages to your friends, your family, your wife, your partner. I should say whatever gender doesn't matter. Let's just like it's weird being alive. Let's just laugh at the whole gender thing, and I don't know how that's gonna play out, but I think a lot of authentic dialogue. I think the weird thing about
Let's say someone is in agreement with you, in alignment with you, but then they're running into someone who we would term very closed-minded, who doesn't have that compassion or openness or any of that. What do you recommend in that situation?
Well, at this point in history, first of all, nonviolent compassion is for the start one. It's like, okay, this person is a human. If they're not like attacking me, I don't need to do anything. They're fine. Their perspectives are theirs. They're not truth. My perspectives are not truth. I'm just a reality tunnel, just like everyone else. I have my own perspective, and so I would recommend that people pause, just like pause, because what happens with these egoic defense mechanisms, defense patterns, is people get triggered. So first thing I just everyone's like, slow down. If you're feeling like, oh, this person just tweaked me out or said something that's making me a little comfortable, notice as a sensation in your body and go, oh, I know that guy. That kind of, oh, shizbot. Hey, and then you just like, okay, I'm going to replace that with, just going to return to presence and ask myself, what does that sensation mean? And allow myself to really be present to what's going on with that other person and myself. And there's a natural intelligence that I believe everybody has in this state of peace. This is why meditation is effective. When
Well,
you have
before we talk about
peace,
that,
well,
though,
just as a
like,
one sentence, it helps you get a peace of mind,
yeah.
and you get out of these immediate trigger responses, and you bring in this creativity known as unbound energy, this energy before it becomes references something in the past, and it gives you an ability to have a moment of creativity and be your best self. Sometimes creativity means something new, but sometimes it just means you're being in a flow state and being a best version of yourself.
Okay. And let's say the other person is not the best version of themselves. They keep
Ooh, right.
coming at you. Like you're pausing,
Coming
you're
at you
tuning in,
verbally or physically?
sensation.
What
No,
can
let's
you?
just say verbally. Let's not
Okay.
take it to physical.
Uh, I'm going to assume it's a man. Just for this example, if we do another example, I'll assume a woman. So I'd be like, "Hey, Mister, um, a your words are and your tone are very heightened right now, and I would have a strong preference if you would kind of take a pause and be slow with me before we continue this interaction. Because if it continues at this level of intensity, I'm just gonna walk away." Okay. Let's say if that's somebody, it's like a stranger. Obviously, if it's a person that they know and they have an ongoing relationship and there's another level of safety there, then they might have a different, a more deeper, more precise response.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's really
That
the
was,
pausing and slowing them down and
yeah,
and seeing what's going on, being curious. If
yes,
it's
being
appropriate.
curious.
I mean, it's not
Thank you.
appropriate always for a stranger. Sometimes it is, though.
Yeah,
Appropriate for a stranger. Like, what is it that you want here? What is it that you need here? What are you trying to get?
yeah. I mean, I was at Burning Man, and it was like, I don't know, like 4 in the morning or something or whatever. And a lot of people, it's a ceremony, Burning Man, and a lot of people get into altered states through music, through just being there, and the environments and energy's bonkers. The excitement of being free of their like matrix situation. For some people, that's like a fantasy super high just to be there because it's so different from the pains of their regular life. They can just be free to who they really am. And they don't have to worry about money for a week. And if they have difficult situations with people at home, they can be with friends or alone. And there's peace there. Like there really is a peace. Like it's really well organized, really well organized. And then they go from no city to a city of like 70K ish in a week. And this time there was like a crazy mudstorm, and yeah, a few people got panicked, but I think overall, my camp was fine. We had a bunch of healers there, and we were very well organized. I would love to see a case study done on which camps like thrived and got more intimate and which ones went chaotic. I bet we could learn something
I bet.
about that as to like who's resourceful. What does resourceful mean? And I would say it's the people who have multidimensional abilities of emotions, organization, people organization, money, for looking a good balance of being really present, but also planning for the future, some scenario planning without getting too crazy about it. Like a lot of the prepper stuff is a little bit of preparation is good, but there's if you some people too into it, like you've lost faith in the higher power to bring order eventually. I think
Yes.
faith is really important.
And
But
detachment from the present.
healthy
Yeah.
detachment from the present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to talk about what that means because I think that would be different for each person, right? Because there's a level of detachment where like, okay, we got to get you more in your body. And then there's other people who maybe could use some a lot more detachment. Ketamine is a really good one for healthy detachment when used supervised with some people who knows what they're doing. I think this is one of the reasons I'm optimistic about the future is psychedelics. And I know Cosmos is a big advocate for intelligent use of psychedelics to enhance the transpersonal. We want to be we are a genius factory. We're going to take all the cool things that we've learned about development, and we're going to create a culture of intelligent mixing. So we're going to have people in there who are known to be good people and have a lot of integrity and a lot of intelligence and enough humility to allow an intelligent group wisdom process to self-organize over time and let it get more complicated and have different specialties. And my goal is only to be there in this organizational development role for 3 years to really get a structure. One of my chief abilities is this facilitator, this process consultant thing. What I want to do there is model what it's like to have healthy divergence of ideas. Let's get a lot of creativity, and okay, we got to actually decide which of these fun ideas actually aligns with what's happening in life and what's possible given our resources. And I'd love for that to be like, if I could have a legacy, I'd love for that to be part of it, is to allow good process. You even said it earlier. That's one of the things I feel like we're 100% simpatico on, is like good process around mental health is going to lead to peace.
Yes. And I read a book about psychedelics for the use of self-development and self-awareness and enlightenment, really, a sense of enlightenment about your life and in the collective, of tapping into that feeling of you're part of a collective and everything. And it's interesting because sometimes people send me books to be on the podcast and then they disappear. And and these days I think, oh, it's just a wonderful gift. That's it.
Yeah.
So the author was really talking about how important it is to find, if you want to do that kind of guided development, and his focus was on to improve mental health, improve depression, improve anxiety, that you do find a practitioner, a guide, let's say a mentor, that's very knowledgeable and feels safe and has experience, and you don't just pull someone else off the street who's already done it, like, so there's a structure to really enhance the benefit, to not have a bad trip, basically.
Yeah, well, hey, shamans of the world, it's one of my favorite things to do is mix psychedelics with this EpiEnergetic stuff. So we can, the EpiEnergetics is these primordial energies of the universe that Donnie has identified with, Donnie Epstein, one of my primary mentors. And yeah, him and I think there's a real beautiful marriage. Donnie's more comes like from a Western esotericism, Kabbalah, and the Eastern highest one, this thing Dzogchen. I really do think if you people understand and accept that our consciousness is our primary reality, and when we clean out, we do a lot of discover and eventually discover awaken, which means that we discover what's going on within us, and then we eventually see the gift in it. And then it goes discover, discover awaken, then awaken discover, and we discover that, oh, that actually this is beautiful. This art that the God has done is we actually need to feel the downside of life in order to really feel the upside. They go together. No contrast, no thing, and it's done in a very brilliant way.
It tips off a memory of me because I'm cleaning out books recently, and I ran across one where it was actually this woman's dissertation. She studied postpartum depression, and I was one of the case studies. And the title of the book, but it's all about the gift of postpartum depression. Like, how did it transform a woman's life in a way that was positive? And that was published, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, after I had postpartum depression, obviously. But it did lead to some real transformation in my life. But yeah, that's a personal example of sometimes when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that. But when you back away from it and go through that process of growth, it really does lead to a transformative process that's hopefully positive. I think when it can lead to that, or when you have guidance to lead it to that, then that does feel better than, let's say, being stuck in the weeds with it for a long time.
Yeah, it feels really good when you can identify those subtle patterns that are holding you back. Sometimes it's just one big pattern at the end of the day that does it.
Yes.
For me, I actually have this weird thing that when because I think in this past life, what happened was I kind of knew that I was going to do this risky thing that was going to cost me my life. But the end of my life was the most torturous moment of my life. Like, it was like, oh my God, I really just, part of me just wanted to be married and have kids and teach a few people. And now I'm not even, I had to let that thing die, in my last moment, and just like ending life super unhappy. So like I found out at the core of my being is like my greatest fantasy is like, can I just be a regular dude who like has kids and like work with a group of people? Like I do something called Deity Yoga. And in Deity Yoga, what you do, it's something I learned from the Tibetans, and psychedelics help with it. Is like, what happened was I was on ayahuasca, and I knew a little bit about Deity Yoga, enough to have it make sense. The ayahuasca is not going to give this inspiration to someone who doesn't have a context for it. So it was like basically was suggested during this ayahuasca session that Ganesh is going to be somebody for you to work with. And at first I thought it was going to work on doubt. And I realized that was true, but also doubt of what? It was like doubt that I'm like strong enough, resourceful enough to handle like whatever comes my way. And also to remind myself about in the Ganesh thing, he's like he takes his desire body, his mouse, and his higher part, super ego almost, like learns to use his desires to guide him to what he really wants, a bigger life than he ever imagined.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited about uh being part of when I was with Ganesh, Ganesh said the next person he's working with is Jesus, because you have torture like him. So he was helping me deal with torture. But also when I thought about him, I was like, the greatest thing about that guy is he inspired other people to teach his stuff. That's kind of cool. I feel like actually people who came after him made him. If they didn't stick with what he said, then did it. So good for him to be so sticky. But I actually see that whole thing and it's like all the people who contributed and keep contributing to it. It's one flow. It's one, like everyone's, I would call it like Christ consciousness or Buddhahood. Is this just simple knowing that you're part of something bigger than yourself, and you're also you, and we all have this ability to have this heightened intuition. I think Jesus's real message was the same as the Buddha's, that we're the ultimate reality together, not just that he alone. It got maybe misinterpreted, I think, or possibly the power elite took advantage of that misinterpretation so that they could keep their power. Because then it had to go through like a priest class, and people believed in hierarchy.
Yeah.
Instead of having a direct sort connection to God.
I think that's a good note to end on. We're at the end of our time here.
We covered a lot of stuff.
We did. In like wonderful Jonathan fashion. We covered a lot of stuff, a lot of ideas and concepts. And so could you please tell people how to find you if they'd like to work with you? You're doing individual work as well?
Yeah. I'll just be very succinct here. Mozenter.com, www.mozenter.com. There's just send me an email if you're interested in working with people. You can work with me. I do a lot of work with teaching in groups. I merge these different Tibetan and energy things and deep psychological work to make you a better you. So I'm going to be doing group work, individual work, particularly with like people who have big visions about creating community and wellness centers. Love to work with those kinds of people, or business entrepreneurs. But I want to work with people who want to have a big impact and understand that they're going to need to do some deep work around their energy, their archetype, their self-awareness to be a better version of them. I'm just going to help you get to do some mirror work with you, see deeper patterns, and reorganize those patterns in a more intelligent way. People who think about systems as systems. I love to work with couples. I have this thing. I would love to have a culture where couples are doing inner work together, and they just fall deeper and deeper in love. And maybe they even have a family project that's like bigger. Maybe the whole family is not only developing individually, but they get together and maybe they work with other families. I really have that. Also people who interested in mixing with psychedelics, let's get together and talk. I feel I got some ideas to how we can alchemize together. That's what the Cosmos Project is going to be about, where a lot of different people who are in the wellness and the arts and who want to heighten their creativity come together in a co-op form to create a better world, but also bring our greatest gifts individually and collectively. So anyways, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it was my pleasure to have you on the show. So all the contact information will be in the show notes for the listeners. And again, thanks for being on the Hypnotize Me podcast.
Thanks.
I hope you truly enjoyed today's episode. Remember that you can get free hypnosis downloads over at my website, drlizhypnosis.com, DRLIZ hypnosis.com. I work all over the world doing hypnosis. So if you're interested in working with me, please schedule a free consultation over at my website, and we'll see what your goals are and if I can be of service to you in helping you reach them. Finally, if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast or tell a friend. That way, more and more people learn about the power of hypnosis. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. Peace. This podcast is not mental health treatment, nor should it replace mental health treatment. If you need therapy or hypnotherapy, please seek treatment from a trained professional.